And the cheerleaders, the football team, and some of the band, they just had a giant orgy in the back of the bus. But it was so late as a kid, I fell asleep like 5 minutes into it.
No.
So as excited as I was, it didn't do enough to keep me awake, but I still remember that bus ride.
Which is funny because I was always awake for porn as a kid, and now I fall asleep during sex. So,
yeah.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
welcome back to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, and this is the podcast for you, I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me are my co-hosts, Ash Spunky Schlafly.
Hi, y'all.
And Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And each week, we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you'd like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, or want to choose one for yourself, please visit us at shatthemovies.com and take a look. At the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie would take to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, please hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. That's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, Lovecraft Country, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, and Watchmen. Find all that information and past episodes at shatontv.com. And finally, to hang out with us live all week long, follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatthemovies.com/Twitch, where we play video games, host watch parties, and end each week with a Shappy Hour cocktail party at 9 Eastern. All that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing today?
So, Gene, this week, one of our listeners, Jack B., decided to commission the 1998 comedy Dirty Work.
And Jack wrote in and said, "Hey, Shat crew. I want to start off by saying how much I enjoy your work on this podcast. I listen to Shat on TV and Shat the Movies for years now, starting with Westworld Season 1. Your show has made mundane car rides more enjoyable, helped me appreciate films that I might have otherwise passed over, and at many times uplifted me on bad days. On a few occasions, you've even read my emails on mailbag episodes for Westworld, Game of Thrones, and True Detective, which I really appreciate. In my opinion, this is the most consistent, well-researched, and enjoyable podcast when it comes to TV and film. Thank you for all the effort and time put in over the years." For this week's episode, I commissioned Dirty Work. I think it was during the Tommy Boy review that either Gene or Raj mentioned this film and asked somebody to commission it. Thus, I had to oblige. Dirty Work came out in 1998, but I didn't watch it until several years later. I must have been about 13 watching it at a friend's house. Back then, many of the jokes were probably lost on us as kids, but the movie still left an impression as we endlessly quoted it for weeks after watching. At one point, we even convinced an unsuspecting teacher to play it during a rainy day recess on the classroom TV. We only made it through a few minutes before she turned it off. Probably when Chris Farley started yelling about the Saigon whore that bit him. At any rate, this is a funny movie and easy to watch at only 82 minutes. There are some enjoyable cameos from Farley especially, as well as Don Rickles, Chevy Chase, and David Kochner. But in my opinion, Norm Macdonald is the best part of Dirty Work. The older I get and the more Norm I watch, the more I realize he is one of the funniest people in Hollywood. He's got such an old cadence to the delivery of his jokes, and the stuff that comes out of his mouth is so unpredictable. On the other hand, he isn't always politically correct, and a lot of the jokes in the film wouldn't be used in modern comedies. Certain scenes or lines in this film haven't aged particularly well, and upon rewatching it, Dirty Work stands out as a bit raunchier than I remember. Nevertheless, something about this movie still works. I think in large part because Macdonald and Lange work really well together as a pair of lovable losers. So for me, it is a 2.25 white film, slightly above average. I'm very curious to see how you all will score this one, and hope you like it. From Jack.
I love that Jack rolled the dice here and said, Raj and Gene wanted this, so I'm going to pony up the money to do it. I know it's a 2.25 white movie, not even particularly my favorite movie. But here you go, guys. Enjoy. Well, Dirty Work is a 1998 comedy directed by Bob Saget and starring Norm Macdonald, Artie Lange, Jack Warden, and Traylor Howard. Based on the short story Vengeance is Mine, Inc. by Roald Dahl, the film follows longtime friends Mitch, played by Macdonald, and Sam, played by Lange, as they work to fund heart surgery for Sam's father, Pops, played by Warden. Notable cameo appearances include Don Rickles, Rebecca Romaine, John Goodman, Gary Coleman, Chris Farley in his final film appearance, and Adam Sandler as Satan. The film was the first starring vehicle for Norm Macdonald and Lange, and the first feature film directed by Bob Saget, coming 1 year after Bob Saget left his long-running role as the host of America's Funniest Home Videos. Co-star Artie Lange later became a regular on The Howard Stern Show, where the film was sometimes discussed. So Big D Ash, we always ask where you were and what are your memories of Dirty Work?
So growing up in New York, I always used to listen to Howard Stern, even when he was back on the average terrestrial radio. Then as an adult, I kind of fell off. At some point, I got a new car that had XM radio in it for free. So I got hooked back in the show, and Artie was there. Artie was like a family member, somebody I felt like I had grown up with, somebody who was just a funny character who just throughout the years kind of stuck with you. But watching young Artie, who was full of life prior to any of the big problems that later would hound his life, was nice to go back. And it was a different movie than from what we've done recently.
I'm a big Artie Lange fan as well. I was a huge Howard Stern fan for a really long time. So it was nice to see him. But the reason I've never seen this movie, because I did know it existed, is I've never been a big Norm Macdonald fan. So I never saw the movie. I'm excited to talk about the thankfully one Norm Macdonald film tonight.
So I was a teenager when this came out, just approaching adulthood. And my friends and I at the time, we were that prime audience for SNL movies, right? We were like teen boys. We like, dick and butt humor. Everybody owned it. It was on regular play in the dorms throughout college. Eventually, we started getting it as a digital file and passing it around. And that might explain why I was able to recite the whole movie start to finish. I had a lot of conflicting emotions when I watched this one because there were laughs coming out of me. And then the greater part of my brain said, oh, man, come on. What the fuck?
That makes two of us.
I think that inner turmoil is going to be reflected in the final shot scores. Big D, let's hit the trailer.
Meet Mitch Weaver.
Hey, that's my shirt.
In the game of life, he's losing his shirt.
You're not fit to wear this shirt.
Mitch can't hold a job.
You're fired.
You get a horse and live in the mountains someplace and don't bother anybody. Got a personality like a dead moth.
Mitch is no good at relationships.
I'm through wasting my life with you.
Note to self, making love to blow-up dolls, not as good as advertised.
Mitch lacks people skills.
Hey, that was really funny, sicking the cops on us like that.
I thought it was funny, but I'm surprised you guys did because you got your asses kicked.
I guess I showed you a thing or two about dirty work.
But there is one thing Mitch Weaver is good at.
You are the king of revenge. We should open a revenge for hire business.
I think you boys can help me.
Okay, settle down, prostitutes. You each get $20, and this requires no sex. Whoa, you got a dead hooker in the trunk.
No, it can't be.
I've never seen so many dead hookers in all my life.
Lord knows I have.
Don't shoot this! This is not part of the commercial! Is some jerk making your life miserable? You want revenge? Let us do your dirty work.
Yeah! Norm Macdonald of Saturday Night Live.
Hey, I think he's got his thumb up that dog's.
Chevy Chase.
What happened to your foot?
When you owe a bookie a lot of money, and you say blows off one of your toes, you still owe him the money. Doesn't seem fair to me.
For anyone too weak to fight back.
We're in prison. You know what prisoners do to each other all the time?
All right, let's go.
You sure you don't want him to?
For anyone who's ever landed on the bottom, your time has come.
You didn't count on my loyal army of prostitutes, did you?
Are you ready for some crazy rough sex? When I say let's go, you go.
Time you shut your cake hole, you'll go. Hey, movie line. Oh, how's that looking, baby? He was supposed to keep driving.
Dirty Work.
Growing up, friends Mitch Weaver, played by Norm Macdonald, and Sam McKenna, played by Artie Lange, are taught by Sam's hard-nosed dad, Pops McKenna, played by Jack Warden, not to take crap from anyone. To that end, the pair plant a bunch of guns in a schoolyard bully's desk and have him arrested for gun possession. Next, they catch a kid fondling crossing guard in the act after having applied crazy glue to the bottom of Mitch's pants. This is a cool twist in 90s comedies, and one of the things I think sets them apart from 80s comedies. In these 90s movies, especially the later 90s movies with Adam Sandler, with Norm Macdonald, the hero wasn't much of a hero. They were usually a loser. They were kind of disgusting. They were poor. They had poor social habits. And it fits Norm Macdonald perfectly because fucking, like, look at him. He is awkward with ladies. He looks 80 years old in a 30-year-old man's body. He gets beat up. I think it's just so remarkably different from Chevy Chase in the 80s. I mean, when we watch like National Lampoon's Vacation, right?
Yeah.
Like, why does anyone want to fuck Chevy Chase? You don't know. Norm Macdonald at least owns up to it. He's like, yeah, fucking, I suck. Let's just play on that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's one of the strengths of the movie. It is honest with what it is. It's obviously low budget. You can see the production value. The movie is inappropriate, but Norm Macdonald, he gives that deadpan delivery. He's unapologetic. I felt comfortable laughing at things that I normally would not, that I know is not acceptable. Like the grabbing the ass of the kid, or like Pop saying, back in my day, we didn't have cool contraceptives, like pulling out. I didn't know if I was going to be offended, but I found it worked because the movie didn't pretend to be anything more.
Yeah, but I think the moments you're listing are not the biggest anti-PC moments of this film. I mean, those I was all fine with. And before anybody calls me a hypocrite, I've made no qualms about the fact that I'm a massive Sandler fan. And I hope one day when we do Billy Madison that maybe I'll be able to be unbiased when I rate that movie, because I think that movie's hilarious. And there's a lot of anti-PC in there. But this is not a movie from the 80s or like the early 90s. This is a late 90s film. This came out in 98. And I don't know. I just think we get to hold them to different standards the closer we get to the 2000s.
I mean, I certainly won't sit here and defend every part of this movie, but jokes like the crossing guard grabbing Mitch's ass, they were funny because of the way it was delivered, right? It was the exact words used and the cadence and the intonation, right? You've got an 8-year-old boy and he's got a man's hand stuck to his ass and he's saying it like he's like a newsie. Like he's announcing like crossing guard grabbing 8-year-old's ass over here. And he just keeps repeating it. And it's coming out of an 8-year-old's mouth. Yes, child molesters are not funny. That is true. But the way that this kid is delivering the line is hilarious.
Yeah, but let's talk about like the inherent plot to this. So the whole idea is that they play these pranks on people, that this is just something they've always been good at since they were kids. And they talk repeatedly about how the people they play the pranks on, quote unquote, deserve the pranks. But I don't know if I really buy that, because I think the stuff that they do to the bullies is like insanely disproportionate to what the bullies are doing to them. And I will admit, I did laugh at the crossing guard thing. I thought that was funny. The crazy glue thing I thought was actually really, really clever. But the gun thing, I mean, that was crazy, right? I mean, they put like 8 guns in the dude's desk.
Dude, they didn't put 1 gun. They put 3 guns. I think the dad's going to be pissed that he just lost like $1,000 worth of weapons. But their pranks were they were unimaginative. I wish that they could have done something more. Spend some time developing ones that we didn't see coming and weren't so dumb. And also, we didn't get to know why were the people so deserving. If you let us in along the way, say the first half of the movie, we get to meet all the people who they're going to punish throughout their interactions, and they're real pieces of shit. Then when they start getting their lives destroyed, we're cheering with them. We're like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, but this isn't the fucking Justice League. Like, revenge isn't supposed to be proportionate. Listen, look at these guys. Mitch and Sam, they're raised by pops. Mm-hmm. They have no women in their lives that we see. They have no fucking jobs. These guys are like not working at all. You got to figure they're not exactly like winners. One of the reasons I don't cross the King B, and I advise no one to cross the King B, is that someone will do a slight injustice to him and he will fucking wreck their life for the next 3 or 4 years. As he says, I got plenty of time on my hands and nothing better to do. That's why this kind of revenge goes so overboard.
Yeah, and I just want to give a quick lesson out there. They're a bit amateurish with the fish when they're spreading them throughout the mansion to hope the smell goes. You need 1 or 2 fish at most, strategically placed in an air duct or air conditioning or heating. A job I had it was a huge building. There was a mouse that died. It took us 2 weeks of searching room by room to narrow down the ducts on where it could be, to find the mouse in between the vent spaces that had been decomposing. It spread throughout the building. So 1 or 2 fish will do the job.
Couldn't you just get like a kitten to do that job?
Oh, I think the way this thing smelled, no way a kitten's going near it.
Well, I think the point of all of this, though, is to say that the movie is just hit and miss, right? As we're reviewing this, the jokes that hit, they are brilliant. But the majority of it is not that great. And I can't recall a movie that's more hit and miss than Dirty Work. Like, the opening gags were all pretty lame. And then we go into like ultra offensive territory where Mitch and Sam are straight up violating a girl's privacy by taking a picture of their babysitter on the toilet, right? And I'm sitting there disgusted. And then comes the line from Norm Macdonald in the voiceover. To this day, that picture still makes me horny. I mean, wistful. A laugh exploded out of my face. I have never been more surprised by a laugh than I was in that moment of this movie.
Yes.
Big D, I think you and I are going to experience a lot of shame during this review. And I experienced a deep amount of shame while watching the movie when it got to the part where Pops was watching the broads work out. You know, he tells the guys, hey, keep it down. I'm trying to watch these broads work out. And he's getting turned on by watching women do aerobics in a video. And this might seem ridiculous to some of you who are in your 20s or even your 30s, but getting porn as a kid was really fucking tough. So as a kid, I had to resort to all kinds of weird shit. And my big one is I would get out of school at about 2:30, and I knew that my sister wasn't out of high school until a little bit later than that. My mom wouldn't be home until like 8. So I had this golden hour after school where I could run home from the bus, and I had the TV all to myself and the house to myself. And it was exactly the time, and I think MTV knew this, it was exactly the time when MTV had The Grind on.
Oh.
And for those of you not familiar with The Grind, it was 30 minutes with Eric Nies, that buff dude from The Real World. And it was just women in bikinis gyrating around a pool for a half hour to the latest hits. I just watched it earlier today to make sure it was still as hot as I remember. Still works.
Yeah, kids today, you don't know the challenge. For me growing up at the dawn of VHS, pornography was like the Ark to Indiana Jones. When you found it, it was a great discovery. Your friends, they thought you were a hero. You could tell them about it. There was a mystery to it. The only option I had beside taking the cable box, because the cable box back then were wired, if you went and jiggled the shifter knob, you would get possibly 5 or 10 seconds of a pay channel. And it was usually Skinamax on a Friday or Saturday night. You might catch a random breast.
Yeah, it looked like a Picasso painting of a breast, though. Very cubist.
Right, but that's all you had. It's like if I was trapped in the desert and somebody peed in a cup, that shit would look like the best drink ever. I would do it because I had to. The only person who was my gateway or access to potentially real pornography was Michael Poses. And he always told us about this legendary porn stash. So one day I got the chance to go sleep over at his father's house with Michael. We waited till about 2:30 in the morning. We went out and got his VHS collection. I can remember the scene. It was a high school bus. It was in the back half, and the cheerleaders, the football team, and some of the band, they just had a giant orgy in the back of the bus. But it was so late as a kid, I fell asleep like 5 minutes into it.
No.
So as excited as I was, it didn't do enough to keep me awake, but I still remember that bus ride.
Yeah, so we've established the porn thing, but like, did you guys ever watch stuff that wasn't porn to get off because you didn't have access to porn?
No. I mean, I wasn't into that kind of thing until I got much older. Like, I don't know if it's like a girl thing, but like, I don't think I saw porn until I was in college.
What did you watch as a young girl to get your engine going?
I didn't do that as a young girl. I just had sex with my boyfriend.
Oh. Humble brag.
After losing 14 jobs in 3 months and being dumped by his girlfriend, Mitch moves in with Sam and Pops, who then has a heart attack. In the hospital, Pops confides that because of their parents' swinging lifestyle, he is also Mitch's father. Even though Pops' heart is failing, Dr. Farthing, played by Chevy Chase, a hopeless gambler, will raise McKenna's position on the transplant waiting list if he's paid $50,000 to save himself from his bookie. Mitch and Sam get jobs in a cinema with an abusive manager, played by Don Rickles, and exact their revenge by showing men in black who like to have sex with each other to a packed house. The other workers congratulate them and suggest they go into business.
So I've already alluded to the fact that I am not a huge Norm Macdonald fan, but one thing I was not expecting is for him to try to be like a romantic lead in this, that he was going to be trying to get the ladies, or that his girlfriend would be so hot at the beginning of this movie throwing the shit out. And I don't know. I mean, does anybody really find Norm Macdonald charming enough to have sex with actual real life women? Because I think the problem is it's not even just about like not finding him funny. I think his delivery is so wooden. Like when he does the thing where he gets punched in the balls and he's like, note to self, don't have kids. Like you could see that joke coming from like a mile away. And I just don't buy that any woman, much less these two fairly averagely attractive women, would go for him. And I don't know.
One of our listeners, Angela, told me last night that she thinks Norm Macdonald is sexy and probably really good in bed.
Ugh. I mean, maybe because he has to be in order to have sex, but ugh.
What would his after sex comment being like? Whoa, I came kind of quick there, right? A little quick. I gotta go home now. Goodbye.
How would you even find his body under like those layers of billowing clothing?
Oh, like the clothes.
What the fuck is that all about? But the fact is, Norm Macdonald cannot exist on his own. He only exists because of the successful comics and comedies that came before him. Like his entire style, Big D, as you mentioned, what makes him unique is it's shortcuts. He takes shortcuts in the comedy. So like instead of showing us the thing or bothering to act at all, he just literally just reads the notes of the joke and you're supposed to get that. And it works for me, but I understand, Ash, why it doesn't work for everyone.
No.
And those shortcuts aren't just in his delivery and his writing. This movie took tons of shortcuts and it leads to lazy movie making. So Bob Saget, he's a novice director. He's not really helping Norm Macdonald. Norm Macdonald wrote the thing. And so we get these little like ticky-tacky things, but they matter. Like, I don't know if you guys noticed, it was bothering me that in the bar, they've got full beer glasses, but then the bottles right next to them are 3/4 empty. Like, how the fuck did that happen? Pops has a heart attack. They put him in an ambulance at night. He arrives at the hospital midday.
Yeah.
I do have to say, the one thing I did really enjoy, I was a huge SNL fan in the 90s and saw everything from Wayne's World all the way through the 90s, especially all the Sandler films. And I loved the fact that this kept that tradition of those cameos that the other cast members do in these SNL movies. And so you've got Chris Farley with that cut off nose, which, by the way, is like the worst prosthetic. Awful. It looked like they just took some Elmer's glue and like smeared it on his nose and let it dry. But you've also got Adam Sandler, who he was the funniest part of this movie, is that cross-eyed devil. He's fantastic. And the only one I don't think works is the small role Chevy Chase plays because, well, fuck you, Chevy Chase. But the rest of them, they were really funny. And I kept like waiting and like I lived through this movie waiting for that next cameo to show up. And when the Sandler one, like that's when the laugh exploded out of my mouth and like sat up on my sofa and was like, okay, well, that was worth watching the movie for.
But it's the sheer volume of cameos. They were like every other scene. I found myself being surprised. I was almost looking for them. But the full list, you got Sandler, you got John Goodman, Chevy Chase, Don Rickles, the Rebecca Romaine one, where it's the bearded lady. I was like, I can't believe she's there. It caught me off guard. You have both Farley brothers, but the one that just caught me completely off guard, when they're having the hallucinations from the brownies. And we get Gary Coleman. So I'm like, oh, different strokes, Gary Coleman. They then couple that with ex-heavyweight champion Ken Norton, and Ken Norton kicking the shit out of Gary Coleman.
Yeah, and then you've got, we talked about Artie Lange. You've got such a young Artie Lange here, and it was so strange to see him clean, or at least clean enough to look like a human being. And if you're not a follower of Artie Lange, there's been this whole thing in the past couple of years that he's been going through because of the amount of cocaine and heroin he has snorted, and methamphetamine. He snorted up his nose. The septum completely dissolved and his nose collapsed, which is actually a really common thing that happens to long-term, drug users that eventually don't turn to needles. But he kept his nose like that for a year in order to keep himself clean. So like he refused to get it fixed. And apparently that guy from that botched show is going to help reconstruct his nose now. But I don't know. I just thought it was really incredible to see him and think about what his life was going to become because of the fame he was about to experience. That made for a really interesting watching experience for sure.
Again, I think one of the funniest scenes in the movie is, Artie Lange pulling his ass out as they're rolling up on that line of people waiting for the movie theater. And Norm Macdonald just pulls over and gets out of the car, just parks the car. Classic moment. Artie Lange makes it. And he might be the strongest part of this movie.
The funniest moments in the film didn't have Norm Macdonald really in them, because Artie Lange has a subtlety to his comedy that I think I didn't even realize he had, because on Howard Stern, he plays a character that is himself, but it's a caricature of who he is. And so like Eugene, that's really the only Artie Lange I ever knew. And seeing him as this sweet, unassuming guy who just gets walked over by his friend, there was something so charming to that. And I think this movie would have been unwatchable if it hadn't have been for him having that subtlety and playing that, that straight man to, Norm Macdonald's character. I mean, I laughed out loud multiple times in that mooning scene. That's one of the times that I did really, really laugh, because it's fucking hilarious when he turns and he just looks at them so dead man. He says, I thought he was going to keep driving. And he just gets out of the car. It's pretty funny.
It's no secret that I hate frats and sororities. I apologize to those listeners and those pod members who were members of frats and or sororities, but
it's okay.
To me, it feels like a celebration of fascism and privilege, right? And I really enjoyed this prank where they dress up as cops. I don't know why they dressed up as cops. They didn't really have to. Call the frat. They let the frat know that there's fake cops going around robbing people. Then they call, hello, real cops? And they send the real cops over to the frat house. The real cops get punched by the frat members.
Point of question, Mr. Lyons. I understand the privilege part, but how are they a celebration of fascism?
Because it's the entire being in lockstep, right? And they tend to trend on the conservative side.
Hold on, you're a guy who goes to a bar at 6 a.m. to be with other Arsenal supporters, to do your chants, and to be you have your little gooners. Group. We're gooners, and you're exactly part of a group. That's what a fraternity is. We're not out there like oppressing people.
Well, some are.
If I went to the bar and every time I try to get a beer, one of my older brothers went and put my beer out in the parking lot and told me to go get it, and then I'd have to go get it and bring it back, and then he'd drink it and then take another one and put it out in the parking lot. Eventually, actually after the first one, I'd be like, fuck this. I don't want to watch soccer here anymore. This sucks.
That's not what it's like every day.
That wasn't what it was like any day for me. We just drank a lot and had really great parties.
Yeah, I agree. It's a social club.
What did it cost to be a part of that sorority?
A lot of money. And that's why I said I get the privilege part. Okay. I even said that from the outset.
I was in a national Jewish fraternity. So there was very few of them.
Are you serious?
Yes.
What?
Was this a Revenge of the Nerds sort of thing?
No.
Were you a lambda?
Listen, so it was Sigma Alpha Mu. It's primarily Jewish. We were one of the bastard redheaded stepchildren. We were the non-Jewish chapter. So whenever they had conventions and we would show up, it was oh no, here are these guys again.
You were the bear Jew of your frat. That's incredible.
Oh my God, he was. You're Eli Roth. Well, from fascism and sororities to homophobia, because I tried to let this go, you guys. I mean, there was the Liberace joke. There was the men in black who like to have sex with each other thing, which was fine. Okay, that was fine. But then there's the, judging each other for looking at the real, and then the people running out scared because they saw two people with penises kissing. And then we get to the prison scene, and I don't know. I think we're back to that old age question that gets us 1-star reviews, which is it really okay to watch stuff like this from today and go, guys, this was just from another time? And I recently watched, Gene, you posted the most brilliant video on Twitter that everybody should go and watch. And Gene was like, this is what it's like to be a reviewer for Shat the Movies. And it was a guy going back to watch a movie he loved when he was a teenager. And it's all of this shit. And he's just being horrified, okay, well, it's going to get better, right? And I think that, I don't know. I just don't buy it. I thought that 1 or 2, cool, whatever, I can blow that off. But pretty much 60% of the jokes in this movie are meant to be gay jokes, right?
I was more upset. It was lazy. They were okay, we have space to fill here. Let's throw in another gay joke, a gay animal. I felt like it was lazy.
Right.
I didn't care that they were gay jokes because some of them for me work. When we get into the movie and they're going to throw on the Men in Black audio, and they have 2 voice actors who they sound like Tommy Lee and Will Smith. Hey, look, it's an alien. Yeah, we better have sex with it. And I'm going to play it for you. And if you listen to the delivery,
Hey, this alien looks just like a hot guy.
You're right. We better have sex with him.
Come on. And the audience is sitting there silent deadpan. I couldn't stop from laughing. I thought it was a unique and an original way to use homophobic comedy.
Yeah, I mean, the Men in Black, that's what we need, is an R&D department for homophobic comedy. But no, Men in Black who have sex with each other, even in the title, is hilarious because it's that shortcut. It's how lazy it was. They're like, all right, we need to come up with a parody title for Men in Black. How about Men in Black who have sex with each other? That was funny. But as Ash said, what wasn't funny is the, don't look at it, look away.
Oh, that was dumb.
Look away so it doesn't turn you gay. Oh, you looked at it, you must be gay. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, and again, please know before the 1 stars come in, I don't care. The first couple, it's fine. Just blow them off. But like, it's just low hanging fruit, right? Like, it's just this low hanging fruit, lazy writing, whatever you want to call it. It's just like, okay, like fucking move on.
There were 4 threads of comedy in this movie. There was hiding fish, putting popcorn in vehicles, homophobia, and hookers. That's all the jokes in this movie. It's all those 4 things.
Yeah, but to our listeners, just so you know, I usually catalog our sound bites, like little sound clips that we can throw in. I have added this to our arsenal, and I will be prepared at any point when talking about having sex with a hot guy to drop.
Hey, this alien looks just like a hot guy.
You're right. We better have sex with him.
So you might hear that in the future. And Ash, maybe I'm sympathetic to this part also of showing a pornographic film to an audience that wasn't expecting it. I think I talked about this with Roger. It was in one of the very first episodes when I worked at Blockbuster, and it was 94 and Speed was the big release, and we had a full wall of Speed. I don't know why. I can't justify this. This is like the Dick Ebert apology tour where I'm trying to make amends for the last 4 weeks. I thought it would be funny to take Speed and edit in a pornographic, just a scene, to see if people would return it. It was almost like an experiment. It was a social studies. I wanted to see what people would do. So I chose the movie, the adult film I used was John Wayne Bobbitt, Uncut. And for the people out there who don't remember, he was the guy whose wife cut his penis off and threw it out the window of a moving car. They found the penis, put it back on, but it never quite worked as well as it did before. It was off to the side. It looked very Frankensteinish, but there's a scene where Ron Jeremy cameos, and he's with a bunch of women. So I took a scene in Speed. The bus is heading to the Gap. Tensions rising. The music, it's climactic. The passengers are terrified. And there's this music, like somber tone that comes in. And Jack and Annie embrace like they're going to die. Bus jumps, cut to a penis. Like, oh, yeah. All over this group of women. Ron Jeremy's belly, the bus lands, and everyone cheers. I put it back out on the shelf, thinking this is going to be immediate. It's going to come back. It rented like 5 times before somebody complained. And I kept wondering, did people watch it and think, man, that was an odd choice? That's a weird narrative direction to take this film. But 5 people watched this and nobody complained.
I think they're embarrassed because they probably liked it.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about the scarcity of porn at the time.
Yeah, and everybody's feeling Keanu in that movie. You asked me what I watched, I probably would have watched Keanu, everything Keanu.
But now as a parent, I'm thinking, how fucked up is that?
Well, your kids aren't watching Speed.
Oh, but some younger kids. Somebody who's like, what movies do you show your kids? What was it recently that you showed that was really inappropriate? Something that was terrifying.
I don't show him anything.
What did he watch that was
R.
scary?
You thought that City of Lost Children was scary.
It is scary.
No, there was something recently you said that gave him nightmares, that made him afraid.
I don't know. He watches the Avengers movies.
Okay, Godzilla verse.
He watches Godzilla versus Kong.
That was PG-13. I'll bet you Speed was rated like PG-13.
Speed was R because it was the first R-rated movie I got to see in a movie theater.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah. So
you're lucky there was no scene where King Kong, cut to some dude blasting a girl.
Yeah, or maybe unlucky.
Mitch and Sam open Dirty Work, a revenge for hire business. Mitch falls for a woman named Kathy, played by Traylor Howard, who works for a shady used car dealer. After publicly embarrassing the dealer during a live TV commercial, the duo exacts increasing lucrative reprisals for satisfied customers until they interfere with an unscrupulous local property developer, Travis Cole, played by Christopher McDonald. Cole tricks them into destroying his apartment building, which is actually owned by Mr. John Kirkpatrick, the landlord, promising to pay them enough to save Pops. Afterwards, Cole reneges, revealing that he is not the owner and that he had them vandalize the building so that he could buy it cheaply, evict the tenants, including Kathy's grandmother, and build a parking lot for his luxurious new opera house. Unknown to Cole, Mitch's note-to-self mini-tape recorder captures this confession.
So most of the movie is formulaic. You can see it coming. But there's one or two moments that caught me completely off guard. When they're thrown out of Cole's office and they're approaching the group of homeless men, and you think there's going to be some homeless prank, they're going to do some stupid gag, you start getting this reflective moment where one of the homeless guys, he starts to think about his life and he says, I had a car, I had a house, I had respect in the community. Suddenly it was taken away. Standing there at my daughter's soccer game and the cops came and asked me to move along. That's when it hit me. I'm not even a human. And the music ends abruptly and Mitch interrupts and says, hey, here's your $2. I was just like, holy shit. I thought the movie was going to go to this place that they were going to deal with the homeless. And they were like, no, we ain't going there.
I'm glad the joke worked on somebody because I felt they telegraphed that from a fucking mile away. I knew where it was going. But it brought up an interesting quandary for me. Gene Lyons, philanthropist, which is I love helping people. I don't mind giving money. I don't mind giving time. I don't really want to talk with you. I just don't want to have the conversation with you. And I feel really bad about that. But it's like when people start telling me their life story and all this stuff, I don't care. I don't want to know. I'm happy to help. I'm a person who help through action, but I'm not your fucking counselor.
But that's why you like animals. That's why
It is why I like animals.
Because they don't you can see if they've been abused and you can sympathize without them having to hear it.
God, if June told me her fucking life story of her first 2 years, that'd
be awful.
Blah, 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 blah.
I think her human voice would be pretty amazing, though. I know I've shit on this movie a lot so far, but one thing I thought was actually really funny, like comedy gold, and something I hadn't seen in a lot of films is the shootout scene. So you guys talked about the fish. So they set the scene. They're going to put these fish in this mansion because this guy's tired of these rich people driving their Corvettes and, fancy cars fast and playing their music so loud. And so he's trying to get him out. And so they're putting all these fish in this house and then they come home. So they have to go hide in another room. And this giant shootout takes place. And Norm Macdonald and Artie Lange are just standing there with their fish in each hand, completely silent, and the audio plays over the static image of them. And so you hear all the people get murdered, you hear everyone dying, and it was really funnier. And the longer it went on, the funnier it became. This was not a gag that got old quick. And I think a lot of other comedies, they would have cut back, they would have had some joke that's cracked at the end, but they don't here. Instead, the best punchline of this entire scene is they go out and they step on the floor and their feet squish because there's, you can just assume the body parts and the blood that's all over the floor. And it was so funny. And I wish the movie had been more of that, because that right there, that was fucking gold.
Best punchline is when Mitch comes back in the room and Sam's still hiding fish. That was the part to me that just died.
Yeah.
But you're right, Ash. This movie is a comedy CD. It's much better as a comedy CD than an actual film. And I don't know if you guys listened to these in high school. I'm ashamed to admit that I had a 6 CD changer in my car, and I think 4 out of the 6 at any time was comedy CDs, mostly Adam Sandler.
Yeah.
But that's where it works. It's the voiceovers. It's the using your imagination. When they're talking about, oh, my gardener uses that to explain why the chainsaw is even in the room. My gardener uses that to trim the trees. Oh, yes. Now you're turning it on me. Are we here to watch a movie or are we here to listen to a movie?
But I'm glad you said that, Gene, because that reminds me. One of Adam Sandler's biggest ones that he had on the tape was, I'm going to do a study. Are these 2 guys lifting weights or 2 guys having sex?
Yeah.
And he would play a sound of somebody grunting. And you'd be like, oh, hey, so are you working out? No dumbbells in here. No, just hot dudes. It was a different time that I guarantee you laughed. You laughed your ass off. And Ashley, the Adam Sandler lover, said it. She must have laughed as well.
There are no weights or dumbbells in here, just my balls.
Exactly. It was a different time. And they even joke about prison rape. And I couldn't help but enjoy it because it was so different. How many times do we hear guys like, oh, you're going to get raped. Don't drop the soap. They don't do any of that. even the mention of rape, Mitch leans in Sam's ear. He whispers it. We don't hear any of it. And Sam's like, I've never heard of that. That's not a thing. That I don't think that really happens. 3 guys come over, take Mitch, and they rape him off scene. Okay. He comes back pulling up his pants, and there's no mention of rape. He just says, oh, you believe these characters? Way out of line. Way out of line. I have in my mind to tell the warden. And he's bitching about, being ridiculous.
I was just upset about the accuracy on this because jail and prison are different, people.
Yeah, that's true.
Jail, you're in there for a short amount of time. Yeah. Prison, you're in there for a long time. People don't generally get raped in jail. There's no time for that. And you're not in there long enough to I don't know, work up a hankering, I guess, right? Rape's more of a prison thing. But I don't think prison rape is funny. And if you are going to do it, this is probably the best way to do it. But maybe just don't do it at all.
It's not funny. Like, I don't know. I didn't think anything about that was, and it's not even about like being PC or it being, like it's just
ridiculous. Completely ridiculous.
The prison sex, his delivery is how upset. He says, you know what? The thing that hurts me the most is just the lack of respect. Oh yeah. And the other thing hurts, but not as much as the lack of respect. He keeps going.
You explaining the joke to me doesn't make it funnier. Like, if you have to explain the joke. And let me just say this before other people out there, like, comedy is very personal, right? Like, there's certain comedians that, like, you really connect with. Like, I think the funniest comedian of all time, my favorite, is Mitch Hedberg. I think Mitch Hedberg was fucking hilarious, but he drives some people up the wall because his delivery is so annoying. And so I get why somebody may hate Mitch Hedberg. And so for me, I get why you guys may think Norm Macdonald's funny, but like I just go ugh when he's on screen.
Well, also, if Mitch Hedberg tried to make a movie where he was the protagonist and opened a business, it'd be terrible.
It'd be terrible. That would be because it's all one-liners. It wouldn't work at all. Like at all. I actually think that's a really brilliant point, and I think that's your problem here. Is maybe the stuff on a comedy CD and those sound bites may work, but this is a fucking 90-minute movie that's all supposed to make sense together, with the Chekhov's tape recorder and all of that, in this movie. And so it just, I don't know. It just wasn't funny.
You guys know me. And if anything, I'm a problem solver. So when I'm looking at the situation, I go, okay, Chevy Chase needs $50,000. Pops and Sam have been living in this house for presumably a long time. He's got his old boxing posters on the wall and shit. You got to assume they own the place. Like, wouldn't you be better off just selling the house for $60,000 cash? You got a little bit of a cushion there. You take the money and get it in a day or two. And I'm glad that Sam at least brought it up where he's like, hey, Mitch, why do we have a business, a storefront, a sign and all this shit? Like, Pops is dying. Why are we going through all the motions of like setting up all this shit that clearly costs money and time when you should just be focusing on how do you get $50,000 really quick? Maybe a bank heist would have been a better plan.
Why didn't they sell that car? That was like some kind of U.S. muscle that was convertible. They could have sold
the Cutlass. You get like $6,000 for that top.
Oh, guess what? Now we need $44,000 to save Pops.
And this just speaks to a problem, I think, with American male budgeting that I want to get into. Because the whole time I'm watching this movie, I'm watching Mitch waste money. He's buying the sign. He's getting the storefront. He's drinking at the bar like every day. He's buying costumes. He's driving around aimlessly. Like, this is just a weird thing that I've noticed about a lot of American guys. They can be broke, but they still spend money. And I just wasn't raised like that at all. Like the King Bee, this guy orders food delivery multiple times a day. He drives around in an F-150 that gets 12 miles per gallon and drives all over town running errands and doing favors for people, checking up on friends. He buys knickknacks online when he's in debt. Big D, was this like a thing with you when you were single? Did you just spend money like a sailor or like?
No.
It's not just men, though. I know a lot of women who are like this, too. I think this is very much like a single person issue. Yeah. I don't think it's just like a male issue because I know women that like buy like so much shit they don't need and they go out and they get their nails done every week and they get facials and they get like heels that match every outfit, so I think it's just like a single person elitist thing.
Well, I remember before Emma was born, Vanessa and I, we took a trip. We went to Italy, went to Switzerland. We came back and a couple of my friends said, oh, it'd be really nice, to be able to do that. And I said, we got flights that were $600. We stayed in hostels. I said, we spent maybe $1,500 for a week and a half in Europe. That's your bar tab for 4 weekends of drinking. Right. If you chose to not spend that money, you could do those things as well.
Wisdom. Big D wisdom.
Well, Mitch and Sam plot their revenge on Cole using the tape to set up an elaborate trap. Using skunks, a loyal army of sex workers, homeless men, a noseless friend, brownies with hallucinogenic additives, and pops, they've ruined the opening night of Don Giovanni, an opera sponsored prominently by Cole. With the media present, Mitch plays back Cole's confession over the theater's sound system. Cole sees that his public image is being tarnished and agrees to pay the $50,000. In the end, Cole is punched in the stomach, arrested, and jailed. His dog is raped by a skunk. Pops gets his operation, and Mitch gets the girl. Dr. Farthing overcomes his gambling habit, but is beaten to death by bookies in the end.
So I already mentioned the shootout scene. The other gag that completely worked for me in this movie is the Don Giovanni thing. So I thought it was so hilarious. And I think it's because I know these people. I know this guy who the whole time is just holding on to the fact that this is some highbrow, entertainment. And they're afraid to sound uncultured in any way. So they make up some bullshit and they use big words to talk about art pieces or about movies and why they move them. And they don't know shit, right? Like, it's all just for show. And again, this is what I find so frustrating about this movie, because this and the shootout, they're clever, they're really funny, they're unique, they're done in unique ways. And I just wish they had done this with the rest of the film.
I felt a little hurt by this. Attacking pretentious critics. I felt like it was a direct shot at us. We need to use skunks to heighten the atmosphere and squalor and despair.
Yeah, Big D, I know you're joking, but I mean, there is some validity to that, right? And we've called ourselves out on it before too. We're like, what are we? We're not movie critics. Like, we're just three people who enjoy watching these movies and talking about it with each other and interacting with the audience. But when people take, the Shat score too seriously, I bounce back and go, it's butt wipes, guys.
I agree.
Yeah, you'll never catch me doing like 1/10 of a wipe on anything. That'd be crazy.
Yeah, fuck those people. Seriously, fuck them.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then you get the ending of this movie, and I don't know about y'all, but the ending was a total mess for me. And let's just go to a couple questions. Mitch gets the girl. Why? He's still an asshole. He destroyed the building, which shows that he's not a nice guy that her grandmother was in. Why does he get the girl? The dog gets raped. Again, why? Why is that necessary? And then Sam, poor Sam, #justice for Sam, because he's just this little forgotten character in the end. Like, I know his dad lives, but he doesn't get anything personally. And, they just write Chase's character off. I was like, oh, could they not get Chevy to come back to like fill a final scene? I mean, it was just a mess. And I did not find the ending. It was very wah for me. It felt very rushed and it felt very spliced together.
I had the same question, Ash, on Mitch getting the girl. Like, what did he do exactly? He ruined her career. I thought he was going to give her a job at Dirty Work.
Yes.
He didn't even do that. She gets nothing out of it. Like, what is the point here? I mean, he's a total trash butt. I don't know how all these SNL guys always get some smoke show at the end of the movie. I mean, even with like Billy Madison, it's like he's not like particularly awesome a person.
But
right?
he's rich.
That's true.
He's really rich. And he's Adam Sandler. He's cute.
I recently saw the alternate ending for Dodgeball, which I didn't know existed, where Globo Jim wins.
Oh.
Ben Stiller throws the ball. He gets Vince Vaughn out. And then it's 2 minutes of Ben Stiller just celebrating. And it's fucking, and then it just goes to the credits.
That's like, amazing.
Yes, movies should end like that. The underdog should lose. These guys would have been great as after all this, they just end up in jail anyway.
What if we flip it? What if Sam gets the girlfriend? And then we see Mitch like out with one of the guys he met in prison. And you get that, Sam is kind of like, well, who's that? He's like, oh, it's the guy I met in prison. And that's it. They don't say anything. And that you realize that maybe Mitch is gay.
And we have sex. Now is the time in the podcast where we give our wipe scores for Dirty Work. 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It is a prank pulled off with absolute perfection. Imagine something crazy like popcorn coming out of a car. Whoa. Or 5 wipes is an absolute disaster movie. It's something really gross like fish in your plants. Big D, we'll start with you. What is your wipe score for Dirty Work?
Okay, so I was going to give this a 3.1 wipe, but I do not want to be pretentious. I don't want to be that pretentious critic. So I'm going to switch it to a 3.0. Because I'm the everyman critic. That's what I am. I'm not here about trying to make us sound like we're professionals. This is all for fun. It's It's an arbitrary scale. So I think, yes, the gags, they go from vulgar to sexist to completely tasteless. You can see most of them coming from a mile away, but I laughed multiple times. I think it was what I expected it to be. It could have been a direct to DVD or direct to VHS movie. I thought it was about 15 to 20 minutes too long, and to say it was like an hour and 20-minute movie. So I think for all the flaws of the movie, if they had had some more time to develop it, I think they could have had something, but I still found myself laughing multiple times. It is a everyman score of 3.0 wipes.
All right. 3 solid, square, single wipes from Big D. Ash, would go to you. What is your wipe score for Dirty Work?
Yeah, I thought it was kind of a bummer of a movie. I think there's a reason Norm Macdonald did not have a big solo movie career after this movie because of this movie. And he's just not a leading man. I don't think he's that interesting. I think that his jokes fell flat for the majority of it. And I think the thing that saves it from being a 5 or an even 4 wipe film are the cameos. The cameos are really fun. I think Artie Lange is fantastic. He gives, at least a quarter to half a wipe for Artie Lange. And then the 2 gags that I talked about, because those 2 really do work and are actually really funny. But otherwise, I think it's a really forgettable film. I think it's, the movie poster is Norm Macdonald. He's standing in front of like this white brick wall. And I think this movie's about as interesting as the white brick wall behind him. I thought it was bland. I didn't think it was that good. So I'm giving it 3.75.
I'd also like to point out that in the cover, it's cropped at right about chest height with him, so you don't see how ridiculous his outfit is in. Because once again, I think we should really give an additional wipe just for how bad his wardrobe. Was there nobody involved in the making of this movie that said, hey, how about just like a t-shirt?
No, I think the budget was him and Artie were sharing clothes. It was cost savings.
You know how like when women are kind of like into like kind of chunky dudes?
Yeah.
I thought Artie looked very manly in his polos. I liked his body.
He did. Tucked in. Yeah. He looked nice.
Well, listen, this movie is a gem on YouTube. If you want to share this movie with a friend, you want to say, hey, you never seen Dirty Work? Just send them the clips of the good stuff. You don't even watch the whole movie because it is disappointing on Amazon Prime. It is not worth the rental price. They could have done so much more if they just been more imaginative with the prank. Stop repeating the same joke over and over again. And these jokes appeal to old men. I mean, I feel too young for this movie, which is saying something, right? I'm not a young guy. It doesn't hold up to other SNL comedies of the era. Honestly, ask yourself the question. If you sat down, does this stack up against Waterboy? Which is not Adam Sandler's best, but does it stack? No, it does not.
Mm-mm.
Deuce Bigelow even, which is not even a particularly good movie, but much funnier than this. Tommy Boy, no. And so I think that Norm Macdonald is a bit out of his depth here. It did have some really great moments. And I think Norm Macdonald himself, most of the time, is a pretty funny guy with some dated material. So for me, Big D, I'm going to go along with you. This is a 3 wipe movie.
Okay, Gene. So with a score of 3.25 wipe, that now puts this movie alone in the 152 spot. It is slightly better than, just cover your ears, Gene, Lost Boys, Caddyshack, and Videodrome, and slightly worse than 16 Candles, Vision Quest, and Strange Days.
I want to throw up on this microphone right now. This movie is nowhere. The Lost Boys gave us David. They gave us David.
They gave us Sexy Sax on the Beach.
They gave us what the fuck?
It made me afraid to eat Chinese food.
It's you trying to be the everyman. This is the one time your shitty little 0.1 would have helped here. What the fuck, Big D?
It's Gene's fault for talking me out of it. I'm sorry.
No, it is not Gene's fault. It is.
At some point, like I mentioned this on Twitter. I think I'm feeling comfortable going back and just retconning my score.
What were the scores on the Lost Boys?
Lost Boys was Roger Roper, 4 wipes.
Fuck you, Roger Roper.
Dick Ebert, 3 wipes.
Ugh.
Gene Lyons, 3 wipes. But I think also that was
Gene Lyons gave it 3 wipes?
That was his rookie shot score. That was his rookie shot score.
It is a 2.5 at worst, Gene Lyons. You're part of the problem.
No.
You betrayed your people.
We were rookies at that point. It was just, we were naive to what
that was my
there.
first movie. It's true.
You turned 40 and betrayed your people, Gene Lyons.
I wasn't 40 at the time. I was like 37.
The Goths are coming. That's what I am now. The Goths are coming for you, friend.
So are you saying you want me to go back to my fraction of a vote?
I'm saying that is bullshit. And this is significantly worse than Strange Days for sure.
So on Shappy Hour on Friday, we did live voting for our top 32 movies. We did a bracket, March Radness, and we broke it down. And let me tell you that the audience really upended. There were so many upsets. But they weren't necessarily wrong. By the way, grand champion of all the movies we ever did, Terminator 2. It was undefeated in the entire bracket of 32 movies. But what was shocking is there were movies like The Princess Bride, which was in the mid-table, I think it was like in the teens slot as far as seating goes in the tournament, that made it all the way to the end. I mean, Princess Bride was up there duking it out with T2 and Back to the Future. The wipe score is just 3 people, right?
Yeah.
And it's our scores, and we're doing the best we can. But by all means, on any given day, I think one of these movies could trump another. It, like you've said, Big D, it has so much to do with what mood you're in, what you ate that day, what movie you just saw. I mean, think about the fact that if we see drama, and then a comedy, the comedy's going to seem funnier than if we'd seen 3 comedies before it.
I think also we lacked perspective. I go back and look at we gave even a Fifth Element. We hadn't done that many movies, so I didn't know what bad was. I needed to have Safe Men. I needed to have movies like Grease 2. I needed to have really bad movies.
Hey, now, those are fighting words, dude.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I can tell you the wipe score I love. I don't take it too seriously. I think it's all in good fun, except for when the fucking Lost Boys is worse than Dirty Work. It has failed us, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to rise up.
And speaking of the voice of the audience, Big D, we have some voicemail queued up this week.
Yep, and our first voicemail comes from Andrew.
What's up, Shat Crew? This is Andrew from Maryland. Excuse the audio quality. I'm in the car right now. But long-time Shat listener to all your series of podcasts, first-time caller. And I finally just got through Westworld Season 3. And always look forward to your guys' thoughts on the series and going through episode by episode with you. I just wanted to say, wow, what was up with all the hate mail for Ashley? Everyone who commented or called in to complain or emailed to complain sounded like a bunch of entitled, whiny brats for all their free content, that they had a problem with. I just wanted to say I love Ashley and I've enjoyed her on the movies as well. Always find her comments insightful. I love all the old and new hosts over the years. And just wanted to say you guys are awesome. Don't let the haters get you down. Haters are going to hate. Keep up the good work. I appreciate all the time and energy you guys put into giving us hours and hours of free entertainment. And I wish other people appreciated it as much as I did. So anyway, have a good one, and thanks for everything.
Well, isn't that nice, Andrew? Mm-hmm. I appreciate that. TV's just different, you guys. We say this all the time. It's very hard to come in on TV. I think it's even harder to come in on TV than it is on movies because you've got this incredibly committed fan base for that television show. And so we experienced that a little bit on Westworld, but I would take what we experienced on Westworld any day over what Gene and I collectively experienced with Lovecraft Country. So, TV is just a lot harder. People take it a lot more seriously, but I appreciate it. And hate doesn't get me down. It just motivates me, Andrew. So thank you so much.
No, and I apologize, Ash. I've apologized to you before personally. I think some of this came from my not addressing Roger openly in the very beginning. By not addressing the situation with Roger, it looked like you were taking his chair. It looked like you were replacing him. So I like to believe that some of the listeners were mad at that, and that was where they came from. There's no excuse for how people wrote in, but I apologize for putting you into a spot where people weren't getting the full picture.
It's okay.
And also the audience is overwhelmingly positive, which is the nice thing. I mean, there was a little bit of a bumpy start there, but people have been so kind and it's so wild. I'm fascinated by the fact that still people will commission movies. The fact that even happens blows my mind. Or when we do Shappy Hour and people are just pouring out the cheers and the subscriptions on Twitch, it's nuts. I mentioned that I was getting a custom plate for my Miata. And people are like, well, it's got to be 0 wipes. We're going to pay for it. Like, what the fuck? Awesome. Thank you. And, it's just that amount of support. I mean, we're booked now, Big D, through August of 2022 or something like that?
That's correct.
That's insane. That's absolutely insane, guys.
And the good stuff we get is a lot more than the bad stuff. And so thank you to everyone out there who sent in nice messages. I mean, we got to have a whole Ashley Love Fest episode on Shappy Hour one week, which made me deeply uncomfortable because compliments make me deeply uncomfortable. But it was really nice, though, to hear it all. And the love for Big D always comes in because he's so lovely, and it comes in for Gene and comes in for me. And so it does. And so we accept you with your score of the Lost Boys. But, all you guys out there, we appreciate it. And there's so much more good out there than there is bad, for sure.
Agreed. Our next voicemail comes from Rachel.
Hey, it's Rachel C. You might remember me from introducing the term dick room when Ashley was talking about having her eyes closed and feeling around a dark room full of dicks. You might also remember me from commissioning your least favorite movie ever, Tequila Sunrise, to which I'll only say your critiques were 1,000% accurate. However, you were missing the nostalgia factor. Since none of you had seen it, your expectations were high. Classic 80s movie mistake. If you had seen it in the 80s a dozen times, you would know it's not a good movie, and yet you'd still enjoy it. But I'm here to talk about dick. So in your Full Monty episode discussing the last scene, it's another dick room. But not. Yes, why not? Show those flaccid wangs hanging out, slapping on inner thighs. Why not make it a big dick room finale? Multiple dicks flying. Agreed. I think that is a missed dick opportunity, and it would have made the movie a little better. Have a good night. Love you.
Oh, I totally agree. A little dick makes every movie better, but couldn't they have done the prosthetic? Like, give him a merkin. Give him something like a lot of pubic hair. Make it look like a bird's nest.
I think the funny thing about dicks not being allowed on screen in movies is like they're the least sexual thing I can think of.
Gross. They're nasty.
You know what I mean?
So are boobs, though. I think it's just because they're afraid that women will, want bigger dicks in their life if they put nice dicks on screen. And that's why we can see women naked, but not men naked.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That cast of the Full Monty, there were probably not many nice dicks on that stage. Let's be honest.
There might have been.
There's always the surprise big dick. It's the character that you don't think.
Ginger's got a honking wang.
Oh, huge wang, guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Rachel, thank you for calling in and talking about penises, which is one of our favorite subjects here at Chatting Movies. And our final voicemail comes from one of our perennial listeners, Flavor Dave.
Hey, Shat Crew. It's me again. About the Full Monty, Gene was talking about when you strip in front of a whole bunch of women when you're a man, the reaction you get in the crowd. Well, I had an experience where I was on stage in front of a whole bunch of men. Let me explain. My 21st birthday, my coworkers took me out to Skybox, a strip club located near the south side of Chicago. They got in there. Everybody paid for it. I got to pick out 3 strippers. They took me up on stage. 2 of them were kind of mean. I didn't think they wanted to do it because they were a little
mean
rough.
Strippers.
Well, they put me in this chair, tied me up. They would climb the pole and slam down. They would climb the pole like all the way up to the fucking ceiling and then slam down onto my crotch. They would take turns doing this, and then they untied me, ripped my boxers off me while I was standing there, and then proceeded to pull my pants down and spank me in front of a whole strip club full of older men. And they all were basically just laughing. They were having a good old time, but it was just like laughing at my expense. But it was fun. I wouldn't mind it again. But yeah, that's it. What can I say? 'Cause I sat on you. Flavor Dave signing out.
So, Flavor Dave, I think this is a Chicago thing because if you think about it, Ed DeBevick's, I believe, is from Chicago. You got the Wiener Circle, which is from Chicago. And then you've got Skybox in Chicago. And all these are places where you pay to be humiliated and beaten. What's going on, Chicago?
Thank you, everyone who called and left the voicemail. We do appreciate it. If you want to call and leave us a voice message, please dial 914-719-SHAT. That is 914-719-7428.
Big D, what do we have coming up next?
Yes, Gene. Next week, we have the film that tells the tale of a scientifically miniaturized Marine unexpectedly finds himself floating around in the body of a hypochondriac and tries to outwit saboteurs who want the device that shrank him. Attempts by his colleagues to retrieve the little man protected inside a tiny submarine are hampered by the would-be thieves. Commissioned by Jody G. It was released in 1987. And this one will be interesting because I have good memories of seeing this as like a kid. And it's an innocent movie, so it'll be a nice change from what we've been doing lately.
That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. You can email us, host@shatthemovies.com. Support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, completing a free anonymous survey to help attract advertisers, buying our merch, or commissioning your own movie. Find all that information by visiting our website, shatthemovies.com. By the way, guys, there has been a merger between two companies that we use to syndicate the podcast. So now is a great time to help us find sponsors. So please do visit shatthemovies.com and fill out that survey. Also, you can check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. Find all the information on our website, shatontv.com. Wherever fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by iTunes, please leave a 5-star review. That helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-hosts, Big D, Dick Ebert, and Ash Schlafly, I'm Gene Lyons. Be sure to join us next week for the following movie.
Test pilot Tuck Pendleton wants to make history. Supermarket clerk Jack Putter needs a vacation.
Jack, you're late. That's not good. You know it's coupon day.
Lieutenant Pendleton is about to be miniaturized, placed into this needle, and then injected into this rabbit.
Rock and roll.
But something went wrong, and Tuck's about to get a new destination. Inside Jack Putter.
I'm in a man.
Hello, can you hear me? I'm possessed!
Now, Jack's got twice the problems.
How you doing, Jack?
But he's double the man. With Tuck on his side.
Kicking more accounts!
In his gut. And on his case.
You're not gonna back groceries all your life, are you, Jack?
And only 24 hours left for Jack to get out of danger. So that Tuck can get out of Jack. Dennis Quaid, Martin Short. Give yourself a shot of adventure. Inner Space.